Hi, I'm Katy Derbyshire. I'm going to be reading a sample translation I did from Judith Hermann's book, Wir hätten uns alles gesagt. We'd have told each other everything, published by S. Fisher in the spring of 2023. Starting at the beginning. Some time ago, in a 24-hour mini-mart on Berlin's Kastanienallee in the middle of the night, I happened to run into my psychoanalyst. 2 years after the end of my analysis, and for the very first time outside the room where I'd lain on the couch for years. I was out that evening with G, my only writer friend. We'd eaten at an Italian place on Ebersweiler Straße, drunk a few glasses of wine together outside a bar. Then G had meant to walk me to my tram, and on the way to the tram we'd started talking about our mothers. It was that mother conversation, our slight drunkenness, and the fact that we were retracing old paths, our corner, Rheinsberger, Wollina, streets where we'd spent our youth an actual quarter century ago, that is, in the days when snow still fell and the world around us was black and white and pure poetry. That led me to skip one tram after another and to sit down with G on the steps in a doorway on Kastanienallee, both of us immediately craving a cigarette, even though we'd given up smoking eons ago. A girl walked past us, smoking. I asked her for a cigarette and she apologised for not having any, but over there, she pointed at the late-night shop across the road, you could buy single cigarettes, like in the old days. We crossed the street, went into the mini-mart. The Arab shopkeeper was behind the counter, and in front of the counter was my psychoanalyst, Dr. Dreyhus, paying for a nice yellow soft pack of American Spirit Lights. Many times in my life, I have not recognised people when I've met them outside their usual settings. I had never encountered Dr. Dreyhus outside his office, nor inside his office, strictly speaking. He would open the door to me 3 times a week. I would walk past him down the hall, enter the room, take off my jacket, and hang it over the chair provided for that purpose. Then I would lie down on the couch, and he would take a seat behind me. At the session's end, the same procedure backwards. I would get up, put my jacket back on while gazing out the window, embarrassed. He would walk down the hall in front of me and open the door. We'd shake hands. He'd close the door behind me. It was a miracle that his face, his figure and appearance had made any mark on my memory at all. In the late-night mini-mart, I was faster than him. I recognised him first, or I realised first, and I was alert enough to find the situation remarkable and not to give any sign that I found it remarkable. I said a polite and surprised hello to Dr. Dreyhus and introduced him and G, which was amusing because they both knew about each other. G had come up in stories during my analysis sessions and had, in turn, been forced to listen to a good deal of stories about the sessions. This is G. So this is G. G, at the end of the night and after all these years, this is, in actual fact, Dr. Dreyhus, my analyst. My old analyst. All 3 of us feigned bows. In my memory of the moment, I've regretfully lost sight of the shopkeeper, his eyes on us, on Dr. Dreyhus, who seemed to be a regular customer and might not yet have revealed himself to be an analyst. Whatever the case, I embraced the curious opportunity to ask Dr. Dreyhus for 2 cigarettes. We left the mini-mart, exchanged a few words, how are you, fine thanks, how are you, as he elegantly tapped the cigarettes out of the pack, offered them to us, and was kind enough not to mention the fact that I'd given up smoking during my analysis years. He seemed nonchalant, whereas I was having trouble maintaining my composure. I wanted to commit everything to memory at once, gestures and expressions, his slightly extravagant suit, the way he gave us a light, smiled and kept a relaxed distance. I had assumed Dr. Dreyhus did not exist, that he was a special kind of moth that materialised into a person for the length of an analysis session and crumbled to dust after the session ended, only to regenerate 2 days later. I had, of course, brooded at length on Dr. Dreyhus's life outside his office and had come to the conclusion that he didn't have one, which was partly to do with him as a professional analyst, never having betrayed the slightest detail of his existence, other than his presence, his slightly dandyish shirts, ironed trousers, the interior design of his practice room, and the occasional book placed as if coincidentally on the desk. For me, Dr. Dreyhus lived in that room, with its couch by the window, its scruffy armchair at the end of the couch, its half-empty bookshelf, its empty desk. Outside that room, he didn't exist. But suddenly he was there, I lit my cigarette on the light he gave me. I was aware of his hands close to my face. I was aware that he was slightly drunk and, like me, had let go in a sense as the night progressed. He gave G a light too. And then he wished us good night, walked down the road, walked 3 or 4 yards down the road, and vanished into the entrance to a bar, which to my mind opened solely at that instant, out of utter nothingness, and only for him, and then closed tight behind him. Outside the mini-mart was a crooked bench. I had to sit down. G had to sit down as well. We smoked our forbidden cigarettes in perplexed companionship, G's sympathy for my shock at the encounter consolatory. He said he wasn't at all sure the scene had really just happened, wondered whether it might have taken place like in a Woody Allen or Jim Jarmusch movie, in a wormhole, a deception prompted by the wine, the mother's conversation, the paths into the past. The situation seemed as surreal to him as it did to me, and he too had never before noticed the bar into which Dr. Dreyhus had vanished like Alice into Wonderland. And when I said I absolutely had to go in there on Dr. Dreyhus's heels, G said he'd thought as much. He said, "But I'll walk you to the door, at least."